We're reviewing Shazam 2 today.
Oh, did you guys see that there was a sequel to Horror in the High Desert?
I did see that, and so did Keegan.
I thought we were gonna review Shazam 2. Horror in the High Desert 2 is better though, Minerva, that movie.
Let's watch it. I want to see it. Keegan wants to see it.
So today, we're reviewing Horror in the High Desert 2.
Minerva. I didn't want to review Shazam.
I'll watch it, I swear.
So we're back.
We're back.
Welcome everybody. This is Uncle Mickey Productions. We're a comedy film channel. Today we're going to be talking about Horror in the High Desert 2 Minerva. This is a comedy review, and if you don't know what jokes are and you don't like jokes, just leave.
Yeah, get the fuck out.
We're not actually reviewing.
Yeah, well, we are reviewing it. We're just doing it in a way, hopefully, to make you laugh.
That's why we say comedy and review.
What's wrong with these people? They're saying mean things about the thing. Now they're not even talking about the thing anymore.
If you followed our Spooky of the Week series that we did back in October, we did all mockumentary found footage films, and it was
unfortunately
completely against our will. Just recently, the director,
Dutch Merrick,
announced that they were making a sequel to Horror in the High Desert.
I had a gun to my head.
Yeah, well, and outside of the bit that we did, forced. Really, I think I was the one holding the gun more so than anybody.
I was helping, dude.
Well, I think we all were holding the gun a little bit.
Keegan was like, you gotta load it first.
You gotta load it first. Yeah. You know, Horror in the High Desert, you can watch that video. We all had lots of things to say about it. And I really came away from that movie thinking, okay, I want to see what these people can do without the limitations of a pandemic, because the first movie was made almost entirely on Zoom. There's a lot of flaws with the execution, but I think there's room for improvement. There are some good things in it that I'm like, I could see a second movie being really, really interesting. But at the same time, they dropped that trailer. And the trailer, just one of the biggest problems with Horror in the High Desert 1 is just the acting is cut to a clip.
So this was a really sad story to me, to see Gary's followers turn on him. That blog was everything to him. He really admired them.
It's just not great at all. And the narration from the trailer just takes that torch and runs with it. It's not just just a little spoiler. It's not just a trailer for the second movie. It is a trailer for the Horror in the High Desert universe, because they're doing, like, it is a whole thing now.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
For this movie.
So I was really excited because I did want them to improve, and I was really excited to see what they would do next, but at the same time I was like, this could be just complete schlock.
I think something worth saying here, and I think Keegan would probably agree with me on this. There's a certain allure to a horror franchise when there's more than one, and the allure is, if it's great, well then yeah, obviously,
some people are allured.
like obviously they make more, right? Mm-hmm. But then when they're bad, like the first one's bad, and like they're all gonna be bad. At that point, you're just fascinated by the balls of whoever made it to just keep making them.
And Kevin's staring at him right in the balls.
Kevin is always telling me how fascinated by the balls he is.
Because like they saw something that wasn't good or well received, and they still made something. They made more.
That's like my entire feelings on the Feast trilogy, where like the first one is bad.
But they,
why did we let them? This is not Spooky of the Week.
No,
so
okay.
yeah, we're not talking. Shut up about Feast. Every single one of our videos is about Feast.
The reason why I bring that up is that was my actual fascination, because we all had like mixed to negative to extremely positive feelings of horror in the High Desert. When this guy announced, "Hey, we're not done. We're doing another one." We were like,
in fact, they announced at the end of the first.
We're like, well, oh, what the heck? That's really interesting.
He said, we're just getting started. Let the games begin.
And then they
we had lots of ideas about what that could
we did.
be.
Oh yeah, we talked about it in our video that there was like, oh, I really want this. I really want it to be a Mr. Beast video.
And then the trailer advertised a third movie. That was my mindset going into 2.
Going in, I absolutely loved the first movie.
Oh my God.
I thought it was great.
That's an evolution, right? He was not saying he absolutely
Well, he
loved
had a lot.
it.
I rewatched the video today. He had a lot of problems with it, but he was like, "Oh, but like the scares were genuine, and I loved the end." He saw it like 3 times before we even recorded that video.
So going in, I was like, I'm gonna probably enjoy this no matter what. I hope they don't mess it up.
What is there to mess up?
I hope they took their lesson from the first movie. It's the first movie. It's a low-budget film. The filmmaker and all the cast are from middle of nowhere, Nevada. There's issues with that first movie, but I excuse most of them because I'm like, it's a cast with no budget and it was done during COVID. So I want to see what they can do without a pandemic, with a little bit more financing, a little bit more experience.
I listened to a couple podcasts with the director, and I read a couple interviews with him, and he seems like a nice guy. Like he seems like a big horror nerd. That's something I learned, and he kind of reminded me of someone that exists in our sphere. He's a very scrappy, just like, I'm making movies for no budgets. Yeah. And I really do want the guy to succeed. That's one thing.
He is succeeding, dude. You got $3 from me.
But yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, just in general, he seems like a cool guy, and the whole team just, it seems like they're doing it in the way that we've made movies. So we're coming at this as people that we know what this filmmaking realm looks like, and you know, it looks like they made it again for very little money.
My thoughts going in, I did not like that first one. I liked the ending. I got super hyped for the second one by the end of it. I was like, I want to see more of that. And especially since they kind of had like a loose like setup for what the sequel is going to be. I was like, that sounds interesting. The last 20 minutes is when I was like, oh, the movie started. I want to see this. I want to see more of this. You know, they made that ending really intense and really worth watching. They've got that, just do that again, you know, but better. Don't spend the first hour of it just being like, Gary went into the woods and didn't come back. That's an impossible thing.
He's a survivalist.
He's a survivalist. That's never happened before. Gary's always going in the woods and he's always coming back, but this time he didn't.
His dog's a survivalist.
But yeah, that was my thoughts going in, is that I was genuinely excited. Those were soon squashed. Those feelings.
I imagine immediately squashed.
Yeah, at what point did you realize, oh.
Going into it and watching it, there was a point where I was like, this has nothing to do with what they said the sequel was. What is this? And I wasn't like against it. I'm interested. I mean, it's like not really a sequel, more of like a side in-universe thing.
Keegan, do you want to just briefly run through what the plot of the movie is?
Okay.
And how it relates to Horror in the High Desert
Since you loved it, probably.
Since you loved it. And more that Keegan knows, because I know that I will get stuff factually incorrect.
This is where it gets a little difficult.
So you don't know.
I do know. I actually do know. This is one of my issues, is I do know the plot. The plot is there's 3 plots.
Yes.
The first plot is a geology student from New York. Oh, she gets killed.
Yes.
She dies. Then when they investigate the house, they find videotapes from a serial killer who used to live in that property. And then it's about a woman whose car breaks down the road and then goes missing.
And then about the paramedic guy.
And then it's firefighter is the main character, man, for the ending, even though you don't know this character at all. Who cares?
So yeah, 3 different plots. And yeah, it's loosely connected to Horror in the High Desert 1, where they do mention Gary.
They mentioned him.
And this is one of the...
Just to make sure that it's connected.
This is one of the parts where it was not clear in the movie. Chronologically, this takes place in 2018, which is, if I recall, is 1 year after Horror in the High Desert 1. And I don't know what order the events in this movie take place in. Serial killer stuff is supposed to be from the 90s.
Oh, like those tapes that they found?
The tapes that they find are supposed to be from the 90s. Everything else that happened, I don't know when Car Woman goes missing, and I don't know when Geologist dies.
Yeah, and I think what they're trying to do, from what I remember, his goal, the director's goal with this movie was for it to be less of like a movie and more of like, almost like you're watching a couple of different like TV show episodes from the Horror in the High Desert TV show or whatever, where each episode is like a little, like 60 minutes-esque, we're gonna go, this is what happened. But I don't think it's clear enough. Like, I think they needed...
The segments don't flow together.
They don't flow together, and to the point where I almost wish they flowed together less. Like, I wish there was more of like a, okay, now this story's ending. Because it would just go into...
If they did hard cuts, yeah,
yes,
I agree.
If they had hard cuts where they were like, we are going to... If the
That's
premise...
That's all we have for you. Instead of being like, wait, I don't want to watch this. Wait, what's
why are we
happening
going...
with this?
Who is... I don't care about this woman in the car.
Who is this paramedic?
He was there at the beginning.
He was there at the beginning because he was the
And then he
first...
disappeared for the entire movie, and then
What do you mean he was there at the beginning?
No, he is the
He's
main
a first
character.
responder. He's a first responder
He's the first
who
responder.
went
He's-
to the murdered woman's house.
Yeah.
The same fireman.
Yes.
Wait,
He's an EMT.
He's the
who is
main character.
He is an EMT who is a volunteer firefighter.
Yes. No, this is all in the movie.
I did not connect that. I did not connect the dots at all.
This movie had...
That's him?
That's
Yes,
him?
because he also interviewed at the end, and you see his face
Because
again.
I was gonna make a joke that it shouldn't have been called Horror in the High Desert to Minerva. It should have been Horror in the High Desert desert, and some rat bastard paramedic is the main character now.
They did not do anything that bad where it just, at the end, it's a completely different character. It is a character
To me,
that
it was, because I didn't know who that was. Okay. To me, also, like, but they don't do a good job setting up that
They don't
character at all,
establish
or
it,
establish that it's like.
I'm with you.
When I saw him, I forgot he.
If I was God and I could rewrite time,
I'm not yet. I'm working on it.
The first thing I would do would be to fix this movie.
that would be my high. Actually, it would not be my highest.
You were
priority.
God, and you could rewind time. King's like,
I
want to
would
make
be
this
working-
shitty movie a little bit less shitty.
Anyways, what I would have done is
Fuck you, kid with cancer. I don't care about you.
No, I don't give a fuck. I care more about Horror in the High Desert 2.
All those 9/11 victims can stay dead. I've got important things to do.
I would have flipped it where he was an EMT in Chicago. He was tired of like all the high
this crazy
stress,
stuff.
all the crazy stuff. He saw a lot of death, a lot of gun violence. He wanted a quieter job.
Yeah.
And then he gets in that and he's like, it reminded me of the stuff that happened in Chicago. I went to a lot of active crime scenes where, the victim or the perpetrator is still loose.
Yeah, he was from Chicago to Cypress, Nevada, the second most crime-ridden city in all of the world. I don't want to bust our loads too much, but I was.
We're in the review now,
I
right?
know.
We're in the
yeah,
goddamn
we passed-
review.
we passed the
We're in load busting. Start busting, dude.
It starts going, and I'm like, okay, like immediately, it's fixing some problems I did have, which like we've said a million times now, repeating ourselves more than the movie repeats itself, is it's repeating itself and has nothing interesting to say for the first hour.
Well, and it really repeats itself less.
They definitely repeated themselves, but I was like, oh, this is a scene.
Yeah.
This is a scene.
It wasn't as egregious.
And they're like kind of setting up characters, cutting to different things, and your imagination is now filling in details instead of just being like, all right, so what are you keeping from me?
Right.
What are you keeping from me? Instead, I'm like, oh, what is happening?
I heard, I don't know if it's the director, but I heard the narration at the beginning saying, so anyway, I made this film and I heard that and I was like, this is awful.
Yeah, my first note is opening narration sucks.
I thought the opening narration was done by the cop guy.
Once I started looking into this, I realized all of this is part of a bigger mystery than I could have ever imagined.
And with that opening scene, air quotes, I was kind of like on the fence with it. I was like, I like this as like a concept or way or get around something, like shooting something. You're just like, this is just a 911 call.
Yeah, the
and it kind of
911
builds
call.
suspense, and you're kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm picturing it, and it seems creepy. It seems kind of genuine, but at the same time, I was like, well, this is a good way to get away with not showing anything.
Here's the problem that I have with that. Is I watch a lot of documentaries and I watch a lot of true crime documentaries. I've never seen a true crime documentary just cut
completely
to
black.
Straight black. Pull up some footage, reenact something,
footage.
get stock footage. I would have preferred stock footage because I was watching, I was like, this is weird. I get that the idea is supposed to be it's so spooky that there's like, that it's just the thing, but I would have preferred zooming in on pictures than nothing. Because after a little bit, I was like, this feels so like, not like a real documentary at all. Maybe just shots of the building, like really spooky, just like so because at first I was like, what the fuck is even going on? Like
If you have a shot of the mobile home at night.
Yeah, exactly. It would if it was just
Doors
that-
open.
Yeah, doors open, and if you don't want to
Lights flickering.
hold on that shot for the entire time.
Yeah, I changed my mind. That sucked.
What I'm
totally
saying is,
for it.
if it was in Horror in the High Desert 1, I would have been fine with it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And the thing that actually does tank it for me is that I was like, you get away with this time, but you can't just keep doing something where you're not showing me anything.
The performances and the execution of the actual call itself were really well done. Like that was my
the
first note
actual call was
the
fine.
call was spooky and like everything that happens in it.
It was, really well done.
It was well done.
I was like, I almost like, I was like, wait, the operator sounds like an actual operator. Like,
They set up in the beginning that the first girl, the girl that got
Minerva.
she went to a not prestigious. She went to the Cypress College rock
Geology.
school, and they have their own like the reason people go there is if you're a geology student, they have an operating mine, which I guess is cool if you're
Well, it's an open pit mine, so you're working with actual geologists that are working in the field.
See this dirt, this is real dirt. You can't get this
She's like, I'm really working hard on my new degree, and she just has a hard hat, and they're all just mining, and like, do this for free.
Yeah, no, I'm working on my master's right now. I'm mining coal.
Some guy with a whip shows up, grabs whatever rock she got, and he's like, this is just coal. It's clearly like a diamond or something. This is just coal. Shoves her back into the...
I'm getting a
Keep
master's
learning.
in black lung.
Where the train for me started to go off the rails was the line. They start talking about Gary, and they're like, "Oh, that footage was released," and then they have some sort of interviewer that was like, "Oh," and then my husband turned to me and said, "Oh my God, they're back."
As soon as my husband saw it, he said to me, "Oh my God, they're back."
And then I was like, what is this? Because I thought it was cooler that it was just a guy, and it's just like, maybe there's more than one guy, but then it's now they're ghoul monsters.
Hear me
They're
out,
back.
hear me out, because and I don't want to give them too much credit, because they still could do something interesting with that, is that because it's a mockumentary movie, there could be local town legends about stuff, and it could just be a guy, and those people are just wrong. It's the same thing as like the Blair Witch thing. You could have a bunch of different stories where like some people could just think it's a witch, you know? To give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt.
It starts going with the whole Minerva thing, and I was less worried with that line because I was like, well, I'm interested in what this is, because this doesn't seem like ghouls, except it kind of gets to that. But by the point it gets to that point, I'm kind of like, I'm more interested. I'm like, I want to know what the answer is here. But then they don't give that to you.
But someone is interviewed, it's an old lady, and it's the person that's not interviewed on camera, because I thought that was really annoying. I don't know if you guys remember, there's one interviewee that is just like black, and it's an older woman, black screen.
I don't know what race she is.
You're talking about the ranch owner.
She said, I heard that there was a student, and when they kept referring to this student, I thought she was a high school student, and it turns out she was a college student.
Everybody keeps talking about this one woman that was a student. And, you know, I was assuming that, you know, she was a high school student, you know. But it turns out that she was in her 30s. And she was taking a college course.
Who the fuck? Why did you need that line? Like, why do you need someone saying, "There"? I thought she. Who cares what if you thought she was a high
She
school
looks
student?
33 in the footage.
Yeah, like no
Looks
one else
fine
is
to me.
confused, and it's not a mystery. No one cares.
And it's like, yeah, this movie is improved in the fact that we were even saying in the first review, like, even though it's a short movie, it can be even shorter. Well, but it seems like he's looked at his work and he's improved, and he made it shorter. It does feel like more concise.
It feels tighter. Yeah,
it feels tighter. It's way less repetitive.
The production value across the board is better. I do want to talk about the elephant in the room. I know we all were bothered by this immensely, and it almost ruined the entire film for all of us.
Okay.
And that is the aspect ratio issues. In the interview shots, it was widescreen. Like they had the widescreen bars on the top and bottom, and that was not it for any of the rest of it.
You know what? I did actually notice that.
And it annoyed the ever-living crap out of me.
I'm gonna agree with you. I didn't notice it, but sure.
It's just one of those things where, like, there are certain movies where they'll do that. Like Christopher Nolan is kind of infamous for doing it. Like he'll change aspect ratios, but usually there's a reason. And also usually, unless you're a psychopath, you don't notice. Some people say like, oh, it is really noticeable for me, but I am typically kind of more anal about this, and I only notice it usually on Nolan movies on the second watch.
With a thing like this, I'm not that offended by it, because I'm like, they're getting footage from all kinds of things. Sometimes it's phone footage, sometimes it's...
Make it uniform. Like, and I don't want to be too much of an asshole about this because it is a low budget thing, but in real documentaries, that's what they do. It is so rare if you watch a documentary on Netflix, everything will be 16:9. And if they have something that's not, they find a way to work around that, because I think it just looks more professional. It looks more like...
What doesn't look professional is that whole segment that's like in low focus.
Well, I actually...
the random segment that's completely like, it's all blurry. Like it's all blurry.
Yeah, and it's like, so here's sheep, and they're blurry.
Yeah, the sheep are blurry.
Yeah.
Everything's blurry. Like it literally cuts to a segment that is every single shot is blurry, almost like they did it in post almost. It's almost like they didn't notice it when they exported it. But
I had my hopes up for a minute at the beginning because I heard the 911 call thing and I was like, oh, like what the heck's up with that? And then they started talking about the Minerva girl and I was like, oh, okay, you know what? I kind of see what they're doing. This is like a totally different kind of story. It's focusing on somebody totally
Someone
different.
named
And then they also
know?
established that she was doing like videos and sending it to her friends. I'm like, oh, there's gonna be a lot of found footage.
Right, like there's gonna be like the vibe's gonna be totally different. I was like, again, that was not great, but at least I can understand. And then when it's no longer about her, I was like, why is it called that?
Well,
why is it called that? It shouldn't be called that anymore. Well, if it's like, oh, we're doing all these other kind of separate things, calling it too like draws too much weird attention to that.
At first, I wasn't too like when they're like, oh, we found the satchel and there's these VHS tapes. And I'm like, all right, I'm kind of on board for this. This might be connected. And like, there's spooky footage in that. I'm gonna be honest. The scariest scene in the movie for me was the guy going down into the basement and like he sees something moving on the other side of the glass, and he's just like, fuck it.
Yeah,
And he gets in there
yeah.
and there's a fucking radio player and he has a stick and he's like poking it into the edges. And
Okay.
I was like, I was getting tense.
Clear that up for me. Who is filming that?
That is 1990s Killer.
Oh, okay.
1990s killer is discovering a different killer?
Okay, so
I thought it was just that was just his place.
I'm finding this out for the first time.
Here is how I've deciphered the movie. So we have Minerva.
I wish I got answers because I was interested in all that crap. I was like, this is kind of interesting. What, like, they found these tapes from this psychopath that was living underneath her.
I wish they should have spent more time with Minerva. I wish the movie was more about Minerva.
So here's the plot. So we have Minerva. She's living in a mobile home that is on a has a basement.
Yeah.
The previous owner before her, like it had like a ton of little tenants going through who are off the books.
Yeah.
In the 1990s, there was a crazy guy living there. And he shot a lot of tapes because he was like, there's fucking someone out there. I want to go see my friends, but he's out there. He hates the light.
Yeah.
The crazy hermit was living in his walls and in his basement, and I assume that he was getting into the basement through a secret tunnel connected to the mine.
Which is what that boombox was.
1990s Killer was trying to appease him by luring people into the woods to sacrifice
And that's supposedly the hermit that
killed Gary.
So what happened to 90s Killer?
We don't know.
We don't know because it disappeared and we don't know who he was. They just found a satchel with his tapes hidden in the wall.
That is what I'm saying. I think that the movie would have been more interesting if it just followed that plot.
yes, literally, I was like, it was like that sounds cool, and it was building to something like that, and I was like,
Like, what if the serial killer is now kind of our main character a little bit? Because we're like, wait, this man knows, like,
this man knows something else.
I know somebody else. Are you here about the murders I committed? No, we're here for something more important.
Well, and they're connected. It's not just he kills people. It is he kills people, but he feeds people.
You could have called it Horror in the High Desert, The Lost Tapes. There you go. Give me a ring, I'll give you a better title.
Don't name it yourself.
Don't name it yourself.
I'm gonna say this.
If you have the
again at
best
end.
title, I'll tell you have the best.
Dutch dude, call us up.
I'm not going to shithole
I'll go to
Nebraska or
shithole
whatever.
Nebraska.
Nevada.
Nevada.
Nevada. I will go there. I'll bring all. I have so much film equipment. I'd
Long Beach is spooky.
Long Beach is super spooky.
Sign us up.
I will work for free for this.
This guy will work for free.
Yeah, Keegan just said that if he was God, he would help you.
I have positive things I want to say too because I want to
Oh, we have not even gotten to the part of the movie I don't like yet.
continue, Alec.
Well, Kevin, what do you think of the movie?
So to wrap up,
have Minerva.
for me at least, the Minerva section, I was very invested in it, and I was like, this fixes a lot of problems I had with the
Yes.
first one, where the first one has nothing. It has no cards at all until the end.
Yeah.
And this one, or at least it's got one card, and you're like, okay, well, show me your card. And it's like, no.
No.
Well, this one has cards, and I'm just like, he's got a full hand right there. That might be a full house right there. What is that? And then he goes, I'm not playing anymore, and he leaves. That's really my problem. Is that I was super invested, and then like out of nowhere it just changes, and I'm like, wait, are we ever gonna go back? We're not going back to that. You're not gonna tell me what was going on with that? Like I said with the tape of the 911 call, it gets away with it to an extent, and there's so many points where I'm like, you're not getting away with this. You're not showing me enough.
Well, so
You were telling me way too much and not-
This
and
movie
not
is
showing.
weird because it doesn't give you stuff that in a real documentary, if this was a real case, they would have. But then it gives you stuff that, like, why would, like, the whole ending, it's like, why would, in reality, why is all of this being filmed?
I assumed it was like a body cam.
Yeah, it was a body cam for search and
Well, but
rescue.
he's holding it though.
Yeah, he's holding it, and firefighters don't have body cams. But either way, my point is more that, like, that's a stretch, and I'll buy it for a found footage, whatever, he has body cam, I'll buy it. I think that there's this weird disparity between They don't have enough of the official evidence that I feel like a real crime case would have, like photographs,
Body was
The
found.
autopsy.
stuff like that would have gone a long way. And then they have too much of the found footage stuff. I think all the found footage stuff is fine. I'm not saying I didn't like that or that I wish there was less.
The found footage is the strongest part.
Make it feel more like a real crime documentary. Because if you watch one of those, they'll blur out the blood, which that's a great way to get away with not doing a bunch of special effects. Just blur out the blood. Have someone lay underneath the body bag or underneath a white sheet, put a bunch of blood on there and blur it out a little bit.
If you have good enough actors, they're going to sell it, and it's going to be as if you're looking at real blood and a real.
Stuff like that would have gone such a long way for me in that beginning act, where just making it feel more like a believable, like true crime thing would have really made me not dislike or not feel like I wasn't buying the found footage stuff at the end.
The tape stuff the Minerva stuff is good. The Minerva stuff is going somewhere, and I'm like, I want to know where this is going, and it's like, and I get basically what happened to her. It tells you enough, like, oh, she got killed by someone that was like in her walls or whatever, or living below her. It's like, I get it, but I want payoff for that.
So then now it cuts to the fucking lady in her fucking car, and this is where I was like, so okay, no, it is the same people that made Horror in the High Desert 1, because almost all the problems immediately come back where it's repetitive. They say like 10 times that they had a system for, if we're on this one specific road, and there's so much backstory explaining, I was on this road once and a creepy guy was there, so we have this specific thing where if like we go there and we break down, which why would that ever happen? But apparently breaking down that road happens all the goddamn time. I don't know why you don't use the goddamn freeway, but apparently that road where creepy people live, where there's no there's no help anywhere around, is the best way to get to Las Vegas.
If you have such a crappy car that will break down on you at the worst point in your life.
But it just annoyed me that they were like, they had such a specific circumstance and such a specific response to that circumstance, and then I was just like, you don't need any of that. I think it's just fine if a girl breaks down on the side of a creepy road. You don't need to explain that it happened to her mom once and there was a creepy guy there.
Yeah.
And they have a whole system. And I was like, okay. And then the found footage stuff in the car. Maybe it just wasn't working for me, but every shot was too long.
Paranormal Activity style.
Yeah, and that's just not how I watch these movies. When it cuts to a girl in a car and there's nothing happening, and you're like, I can see the pixels, and that pixel kind of looked like it moved from side to side.
If I hadn't seen the first movie, I would have probably fallen asleep by that point.
Yeah.
But since I saw the first movie, I was like, where's that creepy guy?
Yeah.
Where's the creepy guy? Is he going to show up?
Well, something showed up.
It is something that is so hard to do in a movie, which is switch protagonists midway through, or switch storylines. Because, Minerva, even though she was not like on camera all the time, she was the protagonist of the movie. The story was about her.
It is called Minerva.
We're trying
It's the title.
And so then we just hard cut to this other woman, and I was just like, fuck this so hard. Because I was like, we're still with her. We're okay, so now she's on the... so this is like a whole new thing we're doing.
Yeah.
Now. And then it's cutting to her sitting in the car for like 5 goddamn minutes.
Yeah, that was the realization I was saying I was having before. I was like, I'm super into this Minerva stuff. I want to know where this is going to go. You're gonna finish the movie with this. Okay, the movie's over.
In general, I just felt like her storyline was just weaker than Minerva's. Like,
Yes, there's no build up to it.
yeah, it's just her storyline, like from a top-down view, is just she drives, her car breaks down, and then she gets taken away by a.
I will say, the part where she's in the bushes and she's like, this is the 3rd time this car's come by, and then like the headlights show that there's a guy there, and I was like,
That was a good shot.
Yep. That was a really good shot. That was a spooky
Well,
shot.
and the first shot that he walks up by the window, I was like, there
I was like, yeah, like that was good. That part was good.
And then like the parts where she's getting dragged off and she's
Oh
screaming,
yeah,
that
did
was
you hear the
effective.
audio? That was
really
really
good.
effective.
Then it should have not had anything after that with the guy walking.
Yes.
I'm with you on that.
Performances across the board, much better than Horror in the High Desert 1. I like, the narration in the beginning was not great, but I thought almost every even the
I probably would have turned it off if that cop guy showed up again.
No, dude, I wanted it to be a little. I was hoping
He's like, I'm back.
but yeah, so good job with the performances. I thought the girl that was coming back as the.
I'd say overall, like the intensity that I feel from the ending of the first one, I feel it way more in this one.
It's
Like,
generally sprinkled more throughout.
it's not just boring and then it's good. It's like, no, this is kind of titillating. This is kind of intense and things that are drawing my attention.
It now cuts back to the protagonist of the film, who, if I get this wrong correctly,
Paramedic man.
Volunteer firefighter EMT.
He gets called to the scene where
He is one of the volunteer
I'm the
firefighters.
only one that works here, babe.
No, he is one of 4 volunteer firefighters, so he got called up.
and then he goes wandering around the woods, and it's very similar to the ending, the first one, where it's very spooky.
Except it's not anyone you care about.
Not as spook. Well, and it's the missed mark with this guy being the protagonist. What I have a.
I'm not like that drawn. I'm way less drawn to this one because it's like, and the guy's also not like, he's not aware of like the darkness that he's in. Like how Gary was, he's like, oh, this is, I'm drawn to this because it's scary and I need to know more about this situation I'm in. Instead of just like, I'm looking for a girl.
I have an editing change that could actually make the whole ending more exciting. What if he hears her screaming and he's trying to find her?
Yeah.
Because he's trying to save her. Like that's because the whole time I was like, why doesn't he just get like, if I were him, I would have just left by then. Like the second he called his friend on the radio and
Well, doesn't she scream once? Doesn't he hear something?
He hears something, but I'm saying hear, help me, like a woman screaming where it is. You know,
I agree.
The audience
that would be freakier.
And it's the Star Wars edit thing where it's like, oh, they didn't have the Death Star about to blow up the Rebel base. Like to me, I think it's that big of a change, or that simple of a change, that could have that big of an impact. Where if there's tension, you know that like, oh, he might be able to save her.
Also, there's also more tension in your scene when like the character is directly involved.
Yes.
With this ending. I'm just sitting there going, oh, he doesn't know that there's a spooky guy out there. Or the guy's just wandering around the woods. Like, he's not so scared until he loses his flashlight or whatever.
Because that's the big thing that made the first one scary, is you're alone in the dark, but you know you're not alone.
Yes. Yeah. There are so many different types of documentary. It's like the Staircase documentary. They had a camera crew following them the entire time.
Great documentary.
And I think that this is a problem that I had with all the found footage movies that we watched, is that like found footage to a lot of these horror filmmakers, it means that it all happened in the past. And I'm saying get that out of there, because a lot of documentaries, yes, they'll have moments where they will go back, but they will also treat it as something that is also currently happening. I think I have the same overall problem that I had with the first movie, which is in editing, I think there's a lot that they could have done to make the movie better and just more enjoyable.
It again felt like there wasn't a second editing.
Yes.
Like, and especially with that blurry section, I was like, did you, is this an export error?
And much like the first movie, I was sitting there and I was like, this is one Kevin fan edit away from being maybe not like the best movie ever, but at least a much better version of this same story.
Easy peasy, you combine 1 and 2 into one movie, and it's an hour and a half.
Something that also made me squint at the TV when it happened, and was like,
you squint at everything, dude. That's how
like
your eyes
just
look.
kind of like give it a squinty eyed look, like, what are you doing? Come on. So like they got the whole thing with the basement, and they're like, oh, the basement guy killed her or whatever, and but then they're like, but then mysterious people filled it with cement and covered it up and said nothing about it. And I'm like, stop doing that. Like, just make it about spooky people. That's fine. Have a payoff then, instead of just being like, they filled it in without saying anything. But see, that's the other big problem with this movie, is that I was like,
and then at the end they have that guy that's like, get ready for Horror in the High Desert 3, baby!
That's when I was pretty over it, because I was already over it with the ending. I was like, I don't care about these characters. I don't care about this EMT.
Yeah.
I wanted to know the Minerva stuff. I wanted to hear more about the guy that's in the basement.
The ending is so much less effective than the first movies.
And then YouTuber man, it's almost like he saw our video and was like, that's a funny idea. Yeah, maybe we will just have Mr. Beast do it. Yeah. And then the reporter literally, like as if it's like a con, is like, don't worry, the sequel is still happening, even though this wasn't the sequel you were looking for.
Yeah.
Bye. She's like, oh, I know you might be wondering that why this movie has nothing to do with the first one, and that's because we didn't do that, but we will.
I do want to give some positives, because I did like the movie overall.
Yeah,
I didn't think it was...
Please explain yourself.
I didn't think it was as good as the first one, but I thought a lot of the found footage stuff was really effective, particularly the serial killer stuff, the 1990s.
That was the creepiest stuff.
Like, when he was in the fucking basement both times, I'm like...
Yeah, the basement stuff's great.
The basement is not safe. Yeah. When he's out at night and he's just, like, shooting, and you can tell that he's, like, sacrificed someone to the hermit.
Yeah.
And, like, the hermit will sometimes just stand there and be looking at him from the distance, and you're like... that man is not safe.
Well, and there's something so awesome and kind of creepy to me about someone who you know is dangerous, like a serial killer, being like, oh, but that guy freaks me out. I sacrifice women to him because I am not fucking with that guy.
And the rent is just too good. I gotta stay.
The rent is too good.
The rent is just
well,
too
they don't
good.
ask me what I do with these women.
the rent is just women.
It's almost like they just got a bunch of footage and then the guy that made it was like, I really got to release something now because people are like, they like my movie, and I haven't finished any of the things I'm shooting, but I'm just gonna put them together and throw it up.
I would agree with Keegan.
Oh, so I don't have a hot take at all then.
I have the hot take then. It's all me, baby.
Yeah, I don't think it's better than the first one. I don't think it's substantially worse. One had like lower lows than two, I think, like overall, because it takes forever to get to something that's really, really, really great. Whereas Horror in the High Desert 2, you don't have to wait as long to get to that stuff, which is good. But the feeling I had with leaving Horror in the High Desert 1 was just more satisfied with what I got. I was like, hey, I waited a while, but when it came really great.
I would agree with that.
Horror in the High Desert 2, the note that 2 ends on, they do this whole long, extremely long walking through the forest thing with the body cam, and then he sees a little thing.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
The payoff.
And I was like, he saw a big thing at the end of the last one. You're making me wait longer, and then I get less of a thing.
Survives too.
And he survives too. So it's like, I wasn't teased with anything other than check out Horror in the High Desert 3. He'll be here in 5 minutes.
I think the movie could have been fixed with a little bit of restructuring. Like if Minerva didn't go first.
If the car woman happened first?
Yeah, like we open up the
It would be similar because
storyline.
there's not really an ending for her story either.
But at least the interesting part happens last, and then they hook you for a third
Maybe
one,
that's
at the
how
very
that's how we
least.
introduce our protagonist, the
Paramedic.
the paramedic. He's the one that's kind of leading us into this new story with Minerva. It starts off with, I just got this call we cut out the whole explanation of every time I go on this bro, I got this call for this person. It cuts to dash cam footage of this girl. Maybe with the mom, and we get a little bit of the mom saying, she was going to Vegas, blah blah blah. Dad was coming to pick her up. Get all that sequence. It's way cut down. We get a little bit of the found footage with the guy, and he was like, I don't know what I saw that night, but it shook me. And then we go into 911. What's your emergency? Minerva. And so it's like that's almost like a cold open to.
That's what I was saying before. I was like, it could work as just a cold open instead of a cold ending.
Instead of cold ending.
It was like what, 70 minutes? 71?
Yeah, it was brief.
If you trimmed it down to 60, I think there's about 10 minutes worth of stuff you could probably cut down.
I'd say at least 10.
Then I guess I have the brave tweet because I would say that I like this one more than the first one.
Okay.
And here's why. So it kind of does the opposite, where the beginning, the first half until the climax,
That's the opposite. It literally does.
is complete unwatchable garbage, and then the ending's good. And this one was like, this is pretty good, and then it's complete unwatchable garbage at the end. I would agree the first one's more satisfying, but I would never go back and watch the first one because I'm just like, I'm not watching that. Like, it's not a movie until the end. It's got way more of the problems that I hate, where it just leads to nothing. It's like, oh, did you know Gary killed his parents with his boat? And like things like that, where I'm just like, none of that matters. You just kind of were filling up nonsense, filling up time until you're like, but I got this cool thing at the end, which I hate stuff like that. Every student film that we ever watch that's horror is nothing happens and then a monster gets them. Which, this is probably a good example of nothing happens and a monster gets them, because the monster getting them at the end was pretty cool. But this one actually, I was like, oh, I'm at the beginning and I'm invested in what's happening. And the movie's going and I'm invested in what's happening until they decide to pull the rug out from under me. And the quality's way better.
Quality is way better. The argument I would make for Horror in the High Desert 1, because I do believe I like that better overall.
What a cold take.
I thought I'd be alone because I thought what you just said about the beginning part being as high quality as it was, and then just that in general, like the audio was better, although there was one sequence that was edited really poorly in this movie.
When it was blurry?
No, they're interviewing the guy, it was daylight, and he was standing outside of the trailer.
Oh.
Guy with a school.
Yeah, there's a really bad jump cut in there. And
I was listening to it with earbuds, and the whole time I was like, the audio is better. It is not good at all.
I thought I was going to be more alone because of those improvements. For me, what Horror in the High Desert 1 does really well is the build-up. I like, even though the beginning sucks.
It takes too long to get there.
And it takes too long to get there. the reason the ending is so creepy is because you did spend so much time hearing about it. And I like overall, I feel like the payoff that I get makes that movie work. I wouldn't watch either one of them ever again.
There's a couple good creepy setups in the first one.
For me, it's just that we spend so much time hearing about, like, trying to figure out what happened, what happened this night, where did Gary go? We have all this evidence, trying to piece it together, and then you finally kind of get to see what happened. That, like, even though it's not executed well, the concept there is solid enough to carry a lot of the payoff for me. Ultimately, I think I prefer Horror in the High Desert 1.
If you want more hot takes, just give me a call.
You saying you like it better is not like.
You just don't like that I have a hot take, dude. You wish you had the hot take.
No, I don't.
Normally, you're so cold.
My opinion is the same. I like. It's fine that you think it's better. To me, one is not drastically better or worse than.
You could try to sound a little bit less like you hate that he has a hot take. It's fine.
It's fine.
Overall, though, it's fine.
It's just, to me, one's not better, like dramatically better or worse than the other one. I'm just like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Like I am close to like being on your side, because to me, I feel about the same. So,
final thoughts on Space Eggs?
Sam said you go first.
Sam said.
Oh, okay. 12 out of 12. Yeah, I didn't like this movie like hardly at all. By the end of it, I was pretty disappointed.
The eggs have no integrity anymore.
They never
have.
The eggs used to be a symbol.
All right, you want me to give it a real rating?
Give it a real rating.
I'm gonna really think about this one.
I want you to be serious.
I'm being serious. I like this one more than the first one. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that built up, but then by the end of it, it's ultimately very disappointing.
You hated it.
I don't like this movie.
And you hate found footage.
I hate that Keegan made me watch another found footage movie at gunpoint. It's very scary every time.
So what's your rating?
12 out of 12.
That's the perfect score.
That's a perfect score.
It's not as good as the first one.
Well, that's your favorite movie.
First one's not my favorite, but it's close.
How do you live up to
How do you live up
favorite film?
to a man's favorite film?
We can do an entire video about how awesome Keegan thinks Horror in the High Desert 1 is. It's not a bit.
It's a masterpiece.
I will second that. This is not as good as the first one. We talked about quite a few issues it had. I'm going to give it 12 out of 12.
Oh my god.
I hear a positive score brewing.
Kevin?
Like I said, I don't think it quite tops the first one. And last time I gave the first one a 10 out of 10, so I'm definitely gonna have to give it an 8 out of 10 this time.
All right, I'll bring us home. So this movie,
Doesn't matter what you say, it's already positive score, dude.
I just have a very strong feeling that if I don't give it a 12 out of 12, there's gonna be 12 out of 12 bullets in my head. I really did want it to be good. I am a big fan of small teams, and I don't like being this negative towards another small filmmaking team. So I just want to state that if we sounded like we were being harsh, it's coming from a place of I genuinely do want to see Dutch Merrick improve.
Oh, and I will be there opening day when that bad boy hits when
We'll do
part
it, dude.
3
We'll do it.
hits Tubi.
For
If he
real,
has a
dude.
premiere in Nevada, I would fucking drive to that.
Hit us up. We're excited. Like, you know, we're negative because we want to see.
I've been a positive once in my life, and now I have hates.
Really thought there was a lot of room for improvement here. I didn't think.
A lot of improvement, though.
A lot of improvement. We're on the right track. I'm seeing upward trajectory. And my honest score would probably be a 6 out of 12. I mean 12 out of 12. So it's a perfect score. That's a perfect score. That's a perfect score. So thank you for watching. That was our video review of Horror in the High Desert 2 Minerva.
I'm hoping that part 3 comes out next week. Honestly, he probably turns these out pretty fast.
I'm excited to watch it.
I'm excited. Dutch, dude, keep in touch. We are all free.
That would be shameful if you try to pay psychopaths like us to work.
This video was brought to you by our sponsors. Thank you for sponsoring our video.
You owe us money.
You owe us money. You owe us money.